With OMNI TV political analyst Kim Emerson, who we always look forward to having on the show because, Kim, you have your ear to the ground on so many things when it comes to the political scene in our province, and we're all a little bit confused right now. Can you help us out?
Well, usually when you have your ear to the ground, you run the risk of getting run over, and we've had that happen from time to time. But what's going to happen today, Jim Iker is going to come out and talk to his membership through the media, and you pretty much have to expect that because they're having a study session today. Part of the study session is to talk about where things are at the bargaining table, what the positions are, and how do you move forward. So how can you have that if they don't know what they are? So Jim Iker's got to come out and explain, look, we went in with lower expectations on wages. Government has countered to a certain extent on a little bit more on class size and composition, but we're not there yet. That's what I expect we'll see with Jim Iker when he comes out today.
So why do you think it has taken this long to get both sides into that marathon bargaining session mindset?
It's human nature. Everybody works to a timeline. There's no incentive for finishing early. You have a timeline set. The government exacerbated that when they said, here's $1,200 if you settle by the timeline. And then in labor negotiations, you have the situation where you bargain along, and then when it gets really tight to the end, you know that that's going to increase pressure, and in all hopes for either side, that's going to give you more leverage in getting what you want from the other side. So it's all human nature as you move along, and maybe that's one of the things that Peter Fassbender needs to look at when he tries to figure out a way to restructure this model and put the incentives at the front end instead of at the back end.
He was on our program just a little bit earlier at 6:40, in fact, and he said he's optimistic a deal can be reached. Do you think that's true?
Well, all he's doing is echoing what the Premier has said, and as we know, the Premier has a little bit of a Pollyanna attitude when it comes to almost anything, and they say, yes, they're optimistic a deal can be reached. There is optimism there because they are at the bargaining table. They are talking. And before people get the idea that it's two sides, one across the table from the other, that's not the way it works. One's in a room in a hotel, the other's in another room in a hotel. There's a facilitator that walks back and forth between the two of them to try to figure out, hey, can we get agreement on this? Then they'll talk about it for a long time. They'll call a facilitator, take that message back to the other side, and it goes back and forth like that. They actually only sit at the table for a little while each day that they're there. The rest of the time they're in rooms trying to figure out their own position.
Okay, so we're looking forward to hearing from BCTF President Jim Iker. We did hear from Education Minister Peter Fassbender earlier today and specifically asked him about the $12 million a day that the government is saving during this job action, strike action, study session, whatever we're calling it. Today is a study session. Tomorrow the strike kicks in. And he was kind of a little bit waffling on where that money might go. Are you hearing anything about where that savings might land?
Well, let's figure this out. The $1,200 that they're offering to teachers sounds like a nice little bit of money, you know, not huge. Hang on a sec. 41,000 teachers times $1,200, that's $49,200,000 that they're going to pay out to teachers if they come to a settlement. There's where a whack of your dough is going to go that they're saving by teachers being out on strike. So that will take care of one chunk of it if they can come to a settlement. The other thing that he said on your program, and I watched him, is he said that they're going to lift the lockout notice for summer school. So what's he saying by that? We care about kids, but only kids who are struggling. The rest of the kids, tough luck.
I know that seemed like an odd statement, and both sides seem to be repeating themselves. I know parents and teachers and really public taxpayers who have much less of a vested interest are all finding it frustrating to hear the rhetoric. Do you see an early end to this, or are we looking at, in your political opinion, staring down September?
Well, here's the good news is they're still at the table. The good news is they're still talking, and that is awesome because anytime there's no news coming out, that usually means they're making some progress. When there's lots of news coming out, that means that nothing's getting done. That means that there's nothing but problems. So there is, to a certain extent, reason to have some optimism. We'll know a little bit better once we hear from Jim Iker, but we heard from the minister this morning. He's hopeful that something can happen. You know that they're still not really close on a settlement, and they still have a few days to go, but there is some hope of that. If that disappears today or tomorrow, then yeah, you're looking down the barrel of another strike as of September, because what we know about the BCTF is they do not like to bargain through the summertime. Why? Because there's no kids to use as pawns against the government.
Which is the frustrating part of that for so many. Kim, thank you as always for putting it into terms that we all understand. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.